Thank you to all the members for supporting my channel. Hi there, do you ever make a video, and while you're making it, you just know that people are going to have a problem with what you have to say, even though you know you're right. Yeah, that's this video. It's me, your favorite leech. I recently made a video where I went through all of Genshin's story a second time in order to experience what it was like for a new player, and during that time, I rediscovered my hatred for a little-known character known as Raiden Shogun, which is unfortunate, because Raiden Shogun had so much potential to be one of the most well-written characters in Genshin, and her concept is what I like to refer to as conceptually interesting, but it flops in execution because the devs were very obviously rushed. All of Inazuma's story can be completed in a grand total of 3 hours. That includes Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and, of course, the Yoimiya and the Ayaka quest. And if you didn't realize, 3 hours seems very short for that, and that's cause it is. I have a feeling the thing they were going for with Raiden Shogun is a god that understands what's better for mortals, but the mortals don't understand why she's doing it. And I didn't just pull that out of my ass. For those of you who don't know, the reason why Raiden Shogun is considered an antagonist is due to an event that happened 500 years ago. You see, Raiden Shogun is actually a twin sister to another shogun who I will call Makoto because that is her in-game non-god name. Makoto was the Archon of the people. She took the reins pretending to be the god that cared for the people, while in battle, the other shogun known as Ai, the shogun that's still alive in modern times, would take to combat and assassinate people who dare to pose the throne. But as we all know, like everything in Genshin, 500 years ago, there was a really bad war, and unfortunately, Makoto lost her life. And in that moment, while Raiden Shogun is cradling her sister's dead body, she vows that she will uphold the holy principles or the heavenly principles so that she can forever make sure that such a horrible catastrophe never happens again. Her ideology in this moment becomes, if I can bring myself as close to the heavenly principles as possible, such an outcome will likely never occur again. So she devises a plan. Raiden Shogun creates a puppet, who I will refer to as Raiden Shogun, and the original shogun as Ai. And remember, Makoto is dead, so there's now, instead of being 3 shoguns, there's only 2 that are currently still alive. Ai then places her consciousness inside of a sword and then stores the sword inside the body of the puppet. This sword contains the Elysian realm, or the illusion realm, or whatever it's called. I don't know how to pronounce this, but essentially inside this sword there's a rift between time and space where the original consciousness of Ai takes its form. This means that she effectively made a snapshot of her mind in that very moment in the form of the puppet. All the while, Ai spends the rest of eternity meditating away inside of the consciousness inside of the blade so that the Raiden Shogun can maintain uprule and keep eternity locked in place for all time. She goes to pretty extensive lengths to do this. By the time we finally get to Inazuma, there is currently a decree out for vision hunters as well as a decree that locks Inazuma off from all outside travel. And we finally get to see what life is like for the people of Inazuma. Now, here's the thing. We are not in Inazuma for very long, and we are led to believe that Inazuma has been on lockdown for a very long time, and in all honesty, I'm not exactly sure how long, because by the time we arrive in Inazuma, it is said that it has been on lockdown for a full year at that point. However, we're also told in the past that Raiden Shogun decided that eternity would be put into place 500 years ago. And then on top of that, there's a couple of people who we talked to while within Inazuma that directly contradict this. For example, the Crystal Marrow salesman says he's been stuck in Inazuma for 2.5 years, which wouldn't be possible unless you A, got there illegally, which we know isn't true because he's a Mondstadt trader, and B, it's only been on lockdown for a year. On top of that, a lot of the government officials that are currently in power throughout this region of Inazuma that we see vastly range in terms of age, meaning it's entirely possible that they should have been going through this for whole lifetimes at this point. But forget all that. Inconsistencies aside, we push our way through the region, and eventually we figure out about the vision Vision Hunt Decree, which is a major criticism I see a lot of people talk about. It is essentially where people are having their visions stolen, and visions are the coalescence of a person's ambition manifested within the will of the gods. It gives them the ability to harness elemental power. Whippy. Well, when it's stolen, it turns out you actually lose your ambition and you become what is essentially a husk of your former self, forgetting the reason for which you fought to begin with. With the stolen visions that Raiden Shogun takes from the people, she proudly displays them in an icon outside of her home. Not long after that, we meet up with Ayaka, we go back to the general's place, we meet up with Toma, watch him almost get assassinated ourselves by the Archon because we are deemed an exception to eternity and thus are a threat, which, by the way, if that doesn't make her a fucking villain, I don't know what is. Oh, you think differently than I do. Okay, time to die. Fucking dictator shit. But anyway, we move on, we go to a general island and find out there is a whole resistance being pinned up against the Raiden Shogun. We team up with them, fight the Shogun, Kazuha awakens some power, we knock her down, we go into the realm, beat Signora, beat corrupted officials, yada yada yada, it's all said and done. There was some Fatui involvement there at the end, and Raiden Shogun is eventually defeated in battle with a combined effort of all the people's ambitions, the Traveler and Yamiko, eventually pitting themselves up against Raiden Shogun and defeating her in combat, at which point she agrees to revert the Vision Hunt Decree, as well as the Sakurio Decree, as well as reopening Inazuma to foreign nations. Did you get all that? I really wanted to say it fast so you got the simulation of what it's like to play the story quest. Anyway, all that being said, I wouldn't have a problem with Raiden Shogun if this is where the story ends, but it's not, because Raiden Shogun, for some reason, is in the end written off like she's a good guy. Like she wanted the best for her people the whole time, which is fucking horseshit because we know she didn't. Raiden Shogun essentially had what is the equivalent of a temper tantrum because she wanted things to stay the same. You know, like a child. And in order to have things her way, she took the well-being of her own people for granted and locked herself away with an ethereal realm, giving them no god to rule over and leaving them in the hands of the Raiden Shogun puppet, which was a snapshot of her consciousness in a horrible place and time. This is not just me saying this. Yae Miko directly herself calls what Raiden Shogun is doing the equivalent to a child throwing a temper tantrum, and that she has no reaction for her people because Raiden Shogun only cares about herself. And if that wasn't enough to confirm it, her closest character in the game straight up saying it, we can see it in action. The most common defenses I hear for Raiden Shogun is A, she didn't know what was going on outside, which is fucking horseshit. I swear to God, I'm like the only person that reads the story, because when you first encounter Raiden Shogun and talk to her yourself, you'd have an interaction where, I'll just read it. Hey, the Fatui have deceived the Raiden Shogun. And then I responds with, oh, surely you didn't rouse me from my state of eternal meditation to only tell me this. If so, you have underestimated me. I am quite well informed about the Vision Hunt Decree. And then you can ask, oh, so you know everything that's going outside? Only everything that pertains to eternity. The Vision Hunt Decree has my tacit approval. The Fatui's actions thus far do not constitute a threat to eternity. Otherwise, they would have been purged a long time ago. Now, let's take a quick run through what the Fatui have done up until this point. As of now, the Fatui are responsible for two major events that are currently taking place within the region of Inazuma. The first one being, obviously, the Vision Hunt Decree. Now, I don't know about you, but stealing every single one of your people's visions and putting them up on a statue that explains your dominance over them, and then murdering people who don't give up their visions before said statue doesn't seem like a very cool thing to do to me. And this is your reminder that every time Raiden Shogun pulls out that sword, she is conscious of what's going on. We can see this in A, her ultimate animation, and B, this is just lore in general. And because we know this is the attack that is used to kill people, it is likely that Raiden Shogun has overseen every single execution of every single vision holder that didn't give up their shit, and hell, she played a hand in it. Oh, and here's the coolest part, by the way. Not too long after you have this little interaction where she tells you she knows that the Fatui are doing everything, she has a line of dialogue that literally says, and I'll just read it verbatim, individual ambition is inherently incomparable with the idea of eternity. What you may not realize is that all too often, people have far too much to lose by chasing their dreams. Consider this, no one has lost their life on account of having their vision taken away. Rather, those who lost their lives are the ones who insisted on chasing their own ambition. Okay, that's rich, because those who chased their own ambition were murdered by you. But whatever, I digress. The fact of the matter is, she knew about the Vision Hunt Decree, she knew about the executions, she knew that it was killing her people. She didn't give a fuck. Here's the other thing the Fatui did. The Fatui, as we know by lore, are directly responsible for the political manipulation that ended up locking down Inazuma with the Sakuyo Decree. Now, you could easily make the argument that Inazumans really don't care that much when vision holders lose their vision, even though I would argue having public executions and a statue bearing the what you have done is pretty intimidating to the main people, but fine, I can concede to that. What we can't concede to is the fact that nobody was affected by the Sakuyo Decree, because the fact of the matter is, every person was negatively affected by the Sakuyo Decree. It directly resulted in a revolution on Watatsumi Island where people are giving up their lives to fight a god, and even those who weren't giving up their lives had very poor quality of life because of it. When you first arrive in Inazuma, you arrive in an island known as Rito, which is the port city of Inazuma, and we are told that it has been on lockdown for a very, very long time, and political officials who have the highest form of authority within the region are robbing the people of their money, time, and resources, making it to where making a living, or even living in general, is very hard due to the lack of food. And with no imports coming into Rito, the major city of Inazuma is on such a economical crisis that it is not able to maintain itself. We see multiple times throughout the story of people straight up losing their businesses simply because they do not have the money to keep things running. Because we can see people in the upper cities who are, once again, they don't have food, they don't have resources, they don't even know what pizza is because they haven't had cheese imported into Inazuma for so long. And by Raiden Shogun's own words, we know that the Fatui were doing this. We know that she knew they were doing this and she did nothing about it. Because like Yae Miko says, Raiden Shogun, or I, doesn't actually care about her people. She is a child having a temper tantrum. She only cares about herself. And all of that, all the way up until this point, I would be fine with. But here's my problem with Raiden Shogun. They tried to redeem her, which, no. No, there's no redeeming this bitch. Like I said earlier, at the end of the Raiden Shogun quest, they try to make it out like Raiden Shogun changed everything for the better by her own volition, which is literally not true. The only reason why Raiden Shogun changed her mind to begin with is because you defeated her in a life and death battle and she agreed to give you what you wanted. She didn't change because she wanted to. She changed because you made her. And even if she did change her ways, we wouldn't fucking know about it because it all happens off screen. The second you defeat Raiden Shogun, you're thrown into a cutscene that explains how everything just magically ended and it's all sunshine and rainbows now. No, I just don't know. And then the salt on top of it is that once you're done with this, you get to go on what is essentially a date with the Raiden Shogun, because why not, I guess. And quite frankly, I don't want to go on a date with a dictator, because that's what Raiden Shogun is. She's a dictator. And even to this day, she believes she did nothing wrong. And this one is a little bit less known, so I don't mind if anybody doesn't know about it, but there is a card event that you can do that was limited time only a while ago, which involved Raiden Shogun and Yae Miko climbing up the card ladder and eventually getting into a bracket-style tournament. When you go against Raiden Shogun, she has a little line of dialogue where she talks about how, oh, I don't know how I'm so good at this game, I managed to climb all the way up the ladder all by myself. You know, genuinely believing she's actually talented. And then when Paimon points out the fact that maybe it has something to do with the fact that the people of Inazuma don't want to potentially beat you in a card duel for the fear that you might, I don't know, butcher them like you've done in the past, Raiden Shogun will then turn to Yae Miko and be like, my people fear me? And then Yae Miko turns to her and just like, yeah, for good reason, no? Such a fucking dog shit character. It is actually insane. Look, I don't mind a little redemption, alright? I don't care if you're super evil and you get a redemption, but that evil, it better have some insane redemption if you've been doing the shit that Raiden Shogun's doing. Because as I have discussed in this video, Raiden Shogun is a child throwing a temper tantrum that murders people that go against her ideals while also heavily restricting the quality of life for her own selfish benefits. And the only reason why she changed to begin with is because you make her. I don't think Scaramuccia's redemption was very good, which by the way, Scaramuccia's ties to Raiden Shogun's even more fucked because he was some sort of doll that she made as a prototype, and then when she had no more use, she discarded him. And I know in later events it was changed and retconned to be that, oh well, actually she did it because she thought it was best for him. That's horseshit. She fucking threw him in the dirt with nobody around, no love, no safety, no protection, no nothing, when he was essentially just a newborn, and then cut off all contact. That's not a good thing, no matter what. And if it is, it only just further pushes home the narrative that she's a fucking idiot and is novicely negligent to the people around her. But at least least when Scaramouche did all the horrible shit he did, he was willing to erase himself from existence in order to right the wrongs. We see him have genuine regret for the things he's done, and we don't see that with Raiden at all. And in my opinion, that's why she's one of the worst written characters in the game. So if you agree, like, comment, subscribe, yada yada. See ya.